What's good, ladies and gentlemen? Once again, you are back for another episode of the one and only Shaded Pixels podcast. I am one of your hosts, Bunny 3000, along with the whole crew. Once again, my friends, it's Shawn, Heartbreak Kid Richards down there. Say what's up to the people.
What's up?
And of course, the one and only, the head honcho in charge, Esteban Cuevas. Hey, he likes that. I saw that pleasure on your face.
I'm in charge here. The click of a button, this whole thing goes down.
That's right. But not today, because I am hosting said show. Ha! Indie Fest.
Everybody hurts.
Playing dirty like that, man.
Hey, gotta do what you gotta do. We gotta keep the ship going and moving forward always, right? Isn't that what Meet the Robinsons said in a little animated movie? Moving forward always. It's something like that.
Meet the Robinsons? I never saw that one.
Yeah, it was. I just watched it like a couple of days ago and it's stuck in my head.
Oh, okay. Don't
judge. Okay? It was on Disney Junior. I had to watch. My daughter wanted to see it. Anywho, ladies and gentlemen. Today, we have a nice little topic for you guys. Of course, in the gaming news, we don't always do this, but this was a little bit too ripe to avoid. I'm certain a lot of you gamer fans out there have already heard the interesting news about Activision and Blizzard effectively divorcing themselves from Bungie, or vice versa. I don't know which one was the one that initiated, but either way, they are no longer, what is the word, partners? Or Activision is no longer the publisher for Bungie's works.
Mm-hmm.
Which essentially was only Destiny at this point.
Yeah, I think technically this means that Bungie was a second party?
Yeah.
Because Activision did not own Bungie, but they were still exclusive to them.
Only because they were publishing Destiny.
Well, they had a contract.
That's the only, and that was the only game that Bungie basically is putting out there. So that's kind of how that worked.
Yeah.
Anywho, what we as a podcast thought would be interesting to do is kind of gloss over both sides, where they are, and then kind of gloss over both sides where we think they are going with this. You know, what this will mean in our opinion. Okay, ladies and gentlemen. So definitely, as always, if you guys have questions or comments, more specifically, if you have comments, definitely tweet us. Whatever it is, you've got all the links and all that other kind of stuff. Send us your comments and everything, reviews, all that other stuff as we dig into this comment. And of course, as you're listening, if you're listening after we have already recorded the live show. So let's get the show on the road. Who kind of wants to jump in first on this? I know, Esteban, you kind of, I don't want to say you're disassociated from said topic, but I know you haven't really had that much interaction with Destiny as a franchise.
Yeah, the only first-hand experience I have is with the first game's beta. So that was a very long time ago. Yeah, I played the beta. I was like, this doesn't really grab me, and then I never played it again. Even though I do own Destiny 2 because they gave it for free via PlayStation Plus not too long ago, but I haven't even booted it up yet. I guess I could whenever I want now, but. I mean, not that I couldn't before, but I mean, now I will say this. I do know a little bit about Destiny because I pay attention to video games, and people are always talking about Destiny because it was one of the biggest games released out there. Now, sometimes it was because of people complaining about the game because they're saying it's too grindy and the loot drops aren't good enough, and they're tired that the shadings and the colors are too much money. That was a big thing.
Essentially a lightning rod for criticism. Yes.
Yeah. But so, I've kind of kept my ear on the ground, so to speak. But
so let me ask you this: from what you've seen and from what your friends and the people that you know have said about the franchise, what is your impression of how they've done and where you think they will go now that they don't necessarily have the influence of Activision?
Well, personally, I will say that I'm a little more interested in the game now that they're not associated with Activision, because Bungie as a company, I thought was very interesting. I like the Halo games, for example. I didn't play all of them, but I did enjoy them. And although I was never like a really huge buff of the multiplayer, I did enjoy myself of Halo's multiplayer. But I especially liked just the solo campaigns. I was more of a solo guy when it came to Halo, so I know Bungie can do some good things. The way from that I heard Destiny was kind of laid out and everything. Now, it's inherently not going to be my thing just because it was more multiplayer based, but it always felt like a type of game where it was more like, we're doing this to make sure that we have all the demographics satisfied, and this is our verticals that we're going to be making sure that everyone is happy with, and the business structure is going to be just this, so it's always profitable. And it sounded more like a business decision rather than a good idea for a game. Now, that's not necessarily a bad thing, but it kind of loses some soul in the process. So that's kind of why when I was playing it through the beta, I was like, this is fine, but there's no real hook to it to me. Now, again, it could be because of the multiplayer thing. That's not really going to be my thing. But even still, that's where I kind of felt like, oh, the shooting is fine, but it doesn't feel as good as it did in Halo. It doesn't feel quite as tight as even a game like in Call of Duty, or even as just chaotic fun like it is in Unreal. Just to compare it from different types of shooters. And in terms of its own thing, well, it doesn't really kind of like set itself apart, because it doesn't. If it doesn't excel at any of the other things that I just mentioned, then what does it excel at? And the answer I found was nothing. Again, not bad, but again, that's what I mean when I mean. That's what I mean when I'm saying that it felt like it didn't have a soul, like it lost its soul, because it was just trying to like make sure this thing is what the aiming is good, make sure that it gets certain loot boxes, make sure there's numbers or no numbers or whatever it is. It's checking off boxes. It's a business decision, and that doesn't make games bad, but it makes some uninteresting.
So let me pose this other question to you.
Okay.
With that said, even though you aren't much of a multiplayer fan, what would you imagine Bungie could do to entice you to not necessarily make this a main game of yours, but at least make it a game that you would be interested in trying out? Because it's clear, since you got it for free and you haven't tried it out, that there's no real draw to get you to try it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I will do it one day, but I mean, hey, I got Red Dead Redemption 2 just right there. I have God of War right there. I have Resident Evil 2 coming in the mail. I mean, my God. What I think they can do is, now that Bungie's going to be kind of left alone to their own devices, that soul that's missing in the game, they can put it back in. So they can make tweaks to it. They're like, oh, okay, the gunplay feels better. Oh, okay, these missions are more fun. Or the story is more interesting. Or something. I don't know exactly what they're going to do with Destiny 2. My guess is that when it comes to Destiny 2, they're going to just kind of keep the game as it is. Continue to support it for as long as they have to. And then the real changes we're going to see is whenever they decide to release Destiny 3. Because then that's going to be a whole new game being made entirely by them. If it's not already, in development already, we don't know. And Destiny 2 is just kind of like, we'll just set it off in the sunset. Maybe we could do something kind of cool, but the real changes for that game are going to come in the sequel. And then there, I'm hoping, is where the soul is. Maybe the more interesting shooting mechanics and combat, more interesting missions, something that will
set it apart.
Yes. Yeah. Because that's really what its problem is that it doesn't really feel like something unique to me. Mm-hmm. Even though, I mean, even when the first game first came out, it wasn't anything that everyone was doing even back then, to be fair. So when it came out, it was relatively new, but it didn't feel like it because it was more like a compilation rather than a new idea. So that's what I think.
Okay.
Am I off base? Because
no, look. This is totally your vision and your impression of it. So there's no right or there's no wrong in what you're saying because that is your impression. What about you, Shawn? I'm interested to see what you think because from my understanding, you've played more, of course, of the actual first Destiny, and you have played Destiny 2 a bit, right?
Yeah, Destiny 2 I played quite a bit of. Mm-hmm. I didn't play as much of Destiny 1. I mostly experienced that. But more along the lines of, I'm excited to see if Bungie will do a new franchise or still keep with Destiny. The reason why I'm a little more interested if they do their own thing is because Destiny, for me, always felt like more of an Activision thing and less of a Bungie thing. The reason I say that is because I remember when the first Destiny was announced. I remember the E3 press conference. They had a big stage and they said, here's Destiny, here's what it's going to be, and here's a closed alpha that you can log into. And I'm thinking, okay, and we're going to support this game for 10 years. It's going to be a 10-year game. And then about 4 years later, they announced Destiny 2.
I remember that too.
Yeah, and with the whole like always online kind of like shared world experience with that, it feels like it's trying to do kind of what Esteban said. It's trying to appeal to first person shooter fans. It's trying to appeal to multiplayer fans. It's trying to appeal to single player, to RPG, to your Diablo fans, and all these other type of things trying to cram together into one shooter, and you get a jack of all trades and master of none, when Bungie, given their Halo background, is more of a first-person shooter or third-person, more first-person shooter, kind of masters there. Here's the problem. Activision already has a Call of Duty. It's kind of like, if you have this great FPS, why have another FPS giant there? So they kind of had Bungie do its own thing, and then Bungie was like, well, this is what we're known for. We're known for Halo. We're known for the, multiplayer shooter of a generation. And you're basically taking that pedigree and moving it to a more niche genre there that really, it's there. I mean, people still like Destiny 2, and I'm not saying it's a bad game. I'm saying it was kind of boring and it doesn't appeal to everybody because it's trying to appeal to everyone. You've got people who, maybe like the gunplay but don't like the looting mechanics. There's some people that like the multiplayer aspect of it, or like more of the single player aspect, but can't stand the multiplayer side of things. And whenever you kind of combine all that together, there are so many different better games on the market that do each of those specific things better. But when you try to shoehorn all of them together, along with the whole microtransactions and everything else like that, it really feels like more of an Activision type of game rather than what Bungie set out to make. It feels like the characters and the personality that Bungie wanted to put in there is there, but it has to go through a bunch of Activision filters. So now that those filters are gone and Bungie can do what Bungie wants to do, hypothetically, then it'll be very interesting to see where they're going from here. Here's the question, though. What publisher would be willing to pick up Bungie again?
Oh, I'm sure plenty will.
Microsoft? Would it be, God forbid, EA? Please don't let it be EA.
Yeah, they would. EA would need to.
They would be dumb. Which, I mean, some companies have done that. I mean, is Disney dumb for giving EA the Star Wars license? Yes, well, but they did.
But the thing is, EA will pick up Bungie 10 years later. Bungie will be dead.
Yeah. Well, here's the thing.
Visceral Games.
Yeah. Well, here's the thing. I don't think Bungie's gonna sell out to another publisher. If they were to work with EA, they would do another kind of deal like they did with Activision, where we'll have a contract, we'll work with each other for a decade, and then that'll be it. There's no way that Bungie's like, yeah, the owners are like, yeah, I'll sell the company to you, EA. Not gonna
only happen. When they're done with the franchise. Yeah. Well, not sell the company, but they'd like maybe do like what they did with Halo and just sell the franchise, so they can move on to whatever their next epiphany is, right?
Yeah, that's honestly what I want them to do. I don't want a Destiny 3. I want to see what Bungie can take from their knowledge of Halo and from their knowledge of Destiny and kind of make, pioneer something new. Because that's kind of what Bungie is known for. Bungie is known for pioneering some of these great ideas.
Yeah, even before Halo, they had a whole bunch of successful titles on the Mac. They had the Marathon series. They had it was a strategy game. I want to say Mythic, but I don't know if that's correct.
I don't think so.
I can't remember.
I think that's a separate developer.
I'm gonna look it up. But the point is Bungie, especially after the deal with Microsoft, because they were owned by Microsoft.
Yes.
They actually negotiated to get out of it because they were just on such good terms and everything, and they would obviously work with them again because regardless, not even though it was Activision Publishing, they still were working with Microsoft to get Destiny over there onto the Xbox. But by the way, the game was called just Myth.
Okay.
And it was
Oni, Myth, and Marathon.
Yeah, Myth and Marathon, and Myth was a strategy game. It was a tactics game. Bungie, after the deal with Microsoft, I guess they just didn't like having to be that controlled. So I don't think they're going to do that ever again. They are going to be an independent publisher, I think, until they have to shut their doors for whatever reason. Until then, they'll probably have to make deals with publishers. Although my understanding is they're going to try to publish the game themselves.
It'll be very interesting. I think it's possible that they can do that. I don't know. I don't know. I know they have the money to do it. I know they have the resources, but I don't know if that'd be a smart call on their decision. Right now, the only studio I know that has done that recently of any high pedigree is Ninja Theory, and they did that with Hellblade.
Yeah,
and now they're owned by Microsoft. Ironically,
well, apparently they got a whole bunch of money from a Chinese video game conglomerate that invested like $100 million into them, so that more than likely it would seem as if they aren't looking to have a publisher, so that they can just do everything themselves. Yeah. That's what it seems like.
Maybe they want to just be their own publisher. Maybe they can.
Right.
Maybe the way they're looking at it now is before they would hook up with these publishers so that they can have the money to do the big ideas that they want to do. Maybe now they're thinking, well, maybe we don't need them at all. Maybe we'll be our own publisher. We'll publish other games, and then we'll use the profits from those other games to do our big crazy thing.
right.
we want to do.
That could be the direction that
yeah.
Bungie is looking to go.
Yeah.
And I would probably also say that Bungie just I get the feeling that the people who work over there at Bungie just don't like being told what to do. So like I know, Shawn, you said that you would like to see them try something new. My guess is we still haven't seen what Bungie's Destiny is, because like you said, it felt more like an Activision game.
100% think that.
Yeah. So it's like, well, we had this idea, but then it was completely co-opted by our publisher. And
I don't think that's 100% true either.
Well, maybe not, but I do. There was another thing about rumors saying that the people working at Bungie weren't happy with Activision because it seems like they were telling them, doing this and that.
Yeah, definitely. But I think like the mistakes made, I don't think were all because of Activision.
Yeah, well,
I don't think that was the reasoning behind Bungie not being what it should be.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'm just at this point, we still haven't gotten a Destiny game as 100% envisioned by Bungie. So in a way, we haven't seen Bungie's version of Destiny yet. That's what Destiny 3 is going to be. After that, then maybe they'll move on to something else. But yeah. Maybe that'll actually be the 10-year game.
I doubt it. But hey, maybe.
I think they're closing in on their their 6 or 7 year?
Yeah.
6 or 7 year already?
Yeah.
Yeah. They I think they've lost that whole claim years ago.
Oh yeah.
Well, BJ, you have the most experience out of all of us with Destiny because you've played them both for a good amount of time, right?
Yeah, I played a decent amount.
What do you think?
Here's kind of how I see Destiny. When I remember all the hoopla, all the buzz and everything about them saying, this is our new title. We're taking our learnings from Halo in a whole new direction, and we're making an MMO first-person shooter. This is going to be the first of its kind. And, just like Shawn said, this is going to be a huge project that's going to last us for years, because what they envisioned was World of Warcraft with Halo.
Yeah.
And that was essentially what they were like. They were like, we'll take what we love about World of Warcraft, we'll mesh it with Halo, we'll throw a whole new storyline or whatever so that it's not Halo, but still looks kind of like it, and we'll throw it out in the mass market and everybody will eat it up, right? So from what I've seen, what they wanted the Destiny universe to be, and this was a quote that the COO said, he said, we want people to put the Destiny universe on the same shelf they put Lord of the Rings, Harry Potter, or Star Wars, right? Okay. So they had this massive storyline, all of it, and this was something that was the very first thing I noticed when I jumped into Destiny. There are all those Grimoire cards and all this other kind of stuff, and what was hilarious was, I was so deep into wanting to learn about Destiny and playing Destiny that I had the Destiny app on my phone as I was playing. So as I got certain achievements and through certain gates in the game, it would unlock certain Grimoire cards or whatever, which you were really supposed to go onto your phone and look on your app and read through. Mm-hmm. And after the first hour of being interested in that, I was like, all right, if I have to be explained the storyline through an app on my phone rather than me experiencing it in the game, something is wrong, right?
Yeah.
And as I was playing the first game, the first few weeks of me playing the game, I remember hearing some article or something like that where they were talking about it, and they had an issue with the story even before they launched, in that they had developed all this information, storyline, characters, the way that the story, not single player, but the way that the in-game story was supposed to progress. Mm-hmm. And they presented it to like the heads or whatever. They like had to condense everything and do a presentation and say, this is what our game is. This is the story. Do you like it? And from what I heard, that delivery, whatever that presentation was god awful. So apparently the presentation was such a poor representation of the story that it freaked everybody out. And I don't know if it was the people at Activision or if it was just the higher ups there at Bungie, in terms of them saying, this sounds awful, you got to change it, this is not going to work. So they ended up scrapping everything. Mm-hmm. And then they had to go back and they had to rehash the story. And they couldn't even quite get that down right. Which is why when you get in, and Shawn, you probably even remember this, when you get into the game and you start playing it, it's like, it feels like there's almost like no direction.
Yeah.
It almost feels like you're going from room to room like you're playing Doom. And the story, you can't even really piece together, and once you even when you get through the so-called in-game content on the original Destiny before you get to like the expansions, you're still scratching your head is, okay, why the hell is this big ass ball sitting right on top of Earth, and what the hell is a Guardian, and what the hell is this, and why does everybody that's walking around look the same even though they're supposed to be different character classes?
I could tell you stories about the Traveler. I could tell you
I can't even tell stories about the Traveler. I don't even remember them. It was so unremarkable. Even though there was a story there, it was so unremarkable compared, of course, to Halo. Halo was a much more memorable experience. Of course, that's easy to say because that story was crafted. It was well crafted. Even though it wasn't necessarily a great story, it was crafted so that there were moments that made you remember it, even if you don't think the story is necessarily great, right? And just like Esteban said, that is where the genius of Bungie was. They could even take a mediocre story, place it in a game, and still craft enough moments through the gameplay, which was great, and make it into something that was legendary, And that's what Halo and that whole franchise was. Storylines weren't necessarily great, but the way that you went through the story in the game and the action was fantastic. And Bungie missed that mark from the jump. And just like we've been talking with Fallout and Elder Scrolls Online and everything, those are first-person experiences, jumping in the first whole MMO RPG thing. They're going through the exact same pains that Destiny went through when they first dropped that, that Bungie went through when they first dropped Destiny. Yeah. There's going to be those hardcore people that jump into it and explore it, and they are not going to have enough content. And that's exactly what initially happened when I first got into Destiny.
I disagree with you slightly there, because in terms of those other games, in terms of games like Fallout, and I'm going to use Halo as an example for this. It crafted the story first. You could play through the first Halo game and get a clear sense of story. And it's like you play through the game, you get the story, that's it, that's cool. If you want to read more or learn more about that, they had the different books out there where you could read more about it. And then, of course, you had Halo 2, 3, Reach, ODST, 4, 5. And then you had all these other games, and then you have the supplementary material there. Whereas, Destiny got the supplementary material, but they thought, okay, here's all the branches, there's no trunk of the tree.
Yeah. Right. They didn't have a core storyline to follow when you were going through the game.
And
that's kind of what I was trying to get at. They really didn't have a core storyline that worked out very well.
And, with Fallout, same thing with Fallout. You have, a core story where you can get a good feel for the universe. And then, if you're interested in it, you could read these different materials, learn about these different vaults. That's why when Fallout 76 came out, people were excited because they knew what Fallout 76 was supposed to be, what the actual Vault 76 was supposed to be. And then learn from there. But without that good baseline, those branches are just piles of sticks that are just laying there. You need to know, you got to have a baseline for it. Destiny 2, I feel like, had that good baseline. I played through the story. You got the Cabal. I believe that. Do I have that right? The Cabal was the main villains from Destiny 2.
I'll probably get into that when we come back from the break, because we're actually going to have to go to a break in just a little bit.
Okay, but yeah, I mean, I feel like Destiny 2 had that better, but that is for after the break.
Yes, ladies and gentlemen, we're just getting going here. So definitely stick with us. We'll be right back after this. And we're back. Ladies and gentlemen, right now we're kind of going through and finishing up some of our discussion about our impression of the Destiny franchise and where we think Bungie can go with it. And then we'll kind of wrap things up and go on to talk about where we think Activision will go after this so-called divorce. When we last left our heroes, I was discussing my impression of the Destiny franchise.
And I was falling asleep because I was thinking of Peter Dinklage's voice acting.
Yeah, that was another part of it. I think probably the one thing I remember the most about playing it and being disappointed with the first Destiny was, as an MMO, I personally wasn't even looking necessarily for a fantastic, great storyline that was going to pull me in or whatever, because I understood As an MMO, the whole core of you going in there is you're going to grind your character. You want your character to grow, get more powerful so that you can take on some big baddie or go and get some big massive weapon or whatever, that kind of thing. But the story should be there at least for you to have context as to why you're doing certain missions and all that other kind of stuff, right? So that was really what I was hoping and looking for when I got into Destiny. And my disappointment was kind of twofold. And I kind of touched on this before. There was not a lot of content there. I understand when you play an MMO that you're going to revisit certain areas just for the sake of, hey, this area is where the story and where you flesh out your world. But the way Bungie did it in the first Destiny was, first of all, it was kind of lifeless because you really didn't see a lot of other players running around when you were doing any of the other missions, number one. Number two, there were really, the enemies that were out there, you knew exactly where they were going to spawn, where they were going to come from, and where they were going to wander. So it was almost like, hey, deja vu, that same dude. And then after you take out a couple more another dudes, like, hey, that same guy is right behind me again. What the? It was like there wasn't enough randomness to any of the encounters or anything that was going on, to the point that even some of the missions that you were being sent on in those different areas were the exact same bosses, the exact same areas, the exact same thing, just kind of wrapped up in a different colored bow because you're trying to get this challenge or something to that effect, right? So that got old really, really, really quick. So that, in terms of content, was what I was talking about. They had a very, very, very small amount of content for a game that they were expecting people to spend hours a day on initially. And then the second part that burned me and a lot of other people was the fact that they were like, okay, don't worry. And this is even beyond the whole leveling issue. That's a whole other thing, but I even overlooked the issue in the confusion of the light and getting to a certain level and maxing at that level and then having to change your character's power. That was confusing as crap. I'm glad they did away. I even forgave them for that. The other part was the fact that I've already paid $60 to be in the game and play the game that you're supposed to upgrade, add content to for 10 years. And now within, barely a year, they're asking you to drop another $60 for an expansion pack that's supposed to add said content that they promised in the first.
Yeah.
So they were like, we cured everything that was the ill of the first release with this $60 expansion pack. That's when I stopped playing the first Destiny. I was like, with all the time that I had already spent and that I was thinking I was going to spend on this new content, they were like, we need another $60. I was like, nope, done for. Sorry, that's it. I'm done. And I think they lost a lot of people there. Because I think at that point, a lot of people were willing to overlook the lack of content and the light and all that other kind of stuff, just purely off of the strength of the mechanics of the game were decent. I wasn't personally one of those people that liked the Crucible, because just like Esteban said, you already had Call of Duty, and Call of Duty was, it was the pinnacle at that time in terms of like multiplayer gameplay. And even Destiny didn't really match up to that. That excitement just didn't pull you in. And all the so-called loot that you were using, it didn't seem like it was supposed to affect it a bit in the multiplayer in Crucible, but it didn't. It either affected it too much on one way, or it didn't affect it enough. It just didn't feel balanced. It didn't feel good to me. Yeah. So that, I think, is where they lost a lot of people. So even without going into the content they added in the expansion, when I got Destiny 2, I was like, this is where Bungie is going to redeem themselves. There is absolutely no way in the world they can't take, you know what I mean? It's like they can't take all of that feedback that they got from what was it, the Taken King and the original Death. There's no way they can't take any of that feedback and not make a really, really great Destiny 2 game. So I got it. I actually convinced my sister, who was a big Halo fan but did not even touch Destiny. She jumped in there with me. I even convinced one of my other friends that hated Destiny with a passion. He jumped in it with me. And lo and behold, Destiny 2 was a lot of fun. The story, the way you went through, there was actually a story I can halfway remember when you go through and get to the in-game content. I actually liked the structure in terms of how they made missions, even with the respawn of, certain enemies and spots and stuff like that. They actually made it so that it was interesting to explore, which is something you couldn't do in the first game. You actually had reason to explore in Destiny 2, and there was stuff to explore in Destiny 2. Finding little secret areas, finding secret bosses, having the boss, what are those things called? The big events, the public events that'll just spawn. Yeah, the public events that spawn from time to time in different areas. That was perfect. I loved it. And then, of course, it got down to the same point. Once you get through, you get through the regular story, you're left with the same thing. Okay, where's the in-game content and where is the draw for you to keep playing? And just because of the way I play first-person shooters, that's kind of where I left it. Because I didn't have the time or the patience to kind of play through the raids, which are uber difficult. You have to go in with a core set of players and everything.
Doesn't that game have like 45-minute raids, like hour raids?
Dude.
Yeah, it's like hour and a half.
Yeah. And they at least made it so that, okay, if you get to a certain point in the raid, then it saves your progress. But if you don't get to that point, then you lose all your progress and you got to start all the way over again when you go back in the raid.
Yeah.
So that, me personally, I'm not much of an MMO person anyways. I'm sure other MMO people understand that and that didn't turn them off. But for a casual person that just wants to go in and shoot a bunch of crap, get some good loot and then jump out, I couldn't handle that. So it ended up just being the same thing. I got to the in-game content with Destiny 2. I was pleased with that experience, and I, quickly walked away. I'm not going to jump in on the DLC or any of that stuff. But I see where where they were going with it, and I see that growth and what they added to it and the amount of content that they had there, it seemed to be what they were really aiming for in terms of story-wise for the original Destiny. And they've got they've got great framework for that. It's just interesting to see that now that they're going to be, have free reign, just like Shawn was alluding to. What is it that's going to, Shawn and Esteban for that matter, what is it that they're going to add to it once they go towards Destiny 3 that's really going to set them aside, set them apart and make it so that they can say, you know what, this is a franchise that we can make buku amounts of money on and don't have to worry about doing another franchise for, because we can craft really great stories in all the content that we create here. Because just like you were saying, Shawn, that's what we're looking for from them.
I thought of something while you were talking, and you hit on a couple of points that I kind of want to bring up.
Mm-hmm.
The biggest one that I look into, because you were like, okay, this is how I play a first-person shooter. But the way that they were trying to monetize a lot of this, they had the story and the story structure of a first-person shooter, like an open-world first-person shooter, like your Borderlands and things like that. But they had the monetization model and the mindset going in of an MMO.
Right.
So they didn't craft an MMO world around the original Destiny, and they fixed a lot of those issues with Destiny 2. They crafted more of an MMO world. They knew a little bit more what they were doing. They learned from their mistakes a bit. But that's where Destiny 1 failed. Destiny 1 failed because they were trying to, instead of crafting...
They kind of shoehorned it in there.
Yeah, instead of crafting its own little world to be this hybrid, they basically said, okay, this is a first-person shooter narrative, or a first-person shooter, like gameplay and everything. Where we go from here, this is what MMOs are doing. Let's kind of like put that in there, see what happens. Right. Destiny 2 felt like, okay, here is this first-person shooter storyline. We gave it a full story, something that you just want to go in, finish the story, and pop out. You can do that. Mm-hmm. And then along the way, you see, here's these public events. If I go, do some public events, I can get some pretty sweet loot. Let me go ahead and do that. Hey, what is this raid that's going on? Holy shit, it's super difficult. But hey, I've made a couple of friends along the way. Let's go in. Let's beat a raid. Let's have some fun.
Right.
And you want to just blow off a little bit of steam, and you want to challenge yourself against different players. There's the
Jump in the Crucible. Yeah.
And then, not only did they have that, but they still had the what's that shop called? What's the shop called?
I know what you mean. I know what you're talking about, but I can't remember.
It's been a while since I played it.
It's been a while.
but you also had the factions there, where you had faction rewards. Yep. Where if you did a bunch of things within this faction, you could get a pretty sweet reward if you've got that. I think
cosmetic, of course.
I'm sorry.
I said it was typically cosmetic, of course.
Typically cosmetic, but sometimes they would be a pretty sweet weapon that you would
get. I think it was at least one. Yeah.
Yeah, Eververse. That's what we were thinking of. Eververse.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And then you had all this type of stuff. So the framework was there. It just needed to be a bit more grown and fleshed out. Destiny 2 felt like what Destiny 1 should have been. Mm-hmm. I feel like if they go Destiny 3, it's kind of like the evolution of Destiny at this point. It's just like Destiny 1 was kind of like their first attempt. You throw it out there. And yeah, it got trampled on for good reason, but it needed to be trampled on so that they could feel like, you know what? We got it. We threw it out there. We know we made some mistakes. Here's how to fix it with Destiny 2. Mm-hmm. Destiny 2 felt like what Destiny 1 should have been, fixed all the mistakes and everything, but never quite reached that peak, that pinnacle, that Halo 2, so to speak.
I think because they had such an issue with the original Destiny, it's almost like they missed their opportunity at being as much of a legend as Halo was. Because of the missteps, and then I feel comfortable saying it's still a great game. It's just not Halo great. You know what I mean? It's still a pretty great game. But it'll be what I think will be interesting though is with Halo 3, they still have, it still feels like they still have a lot to prove. You know what I mean? They still have, they still have a lot to prove with Halo, with Destiny 3.
Esteban fell asleep.
Yeah, I see. Well, he was basically nodding off to. Oh
man.
This episode will never end. You guys are stuck with us. So let's wrap this up pretty quickly so we can get some rest. So like on the Activision side of things, I thought it was interesting looking through like just the making of, and I know a lot of the issues that Bungie had with like loot, they were actually really appreciative of the help that they got from Blizzard, because around the same time, Blizzard was having issues. Yeah, with Activision, Blizzard was having issues with Diablo 3, and the feedback they were getting from their own community at the same time that Bungie was dealing with their loot issues and stuff with Destiny. So they actually got together and Blizzard explained to Destiny, hey, this is what we did. We had to actually make people think that it was completely random, the way that their drops were supposed to be, when in truth they really had to weigh it more so towards what the player needed rather than just fully completely random loot drops, so that every single time you defeat a boss or whatever, that you're not always getting, generic weapons or gear or something like that. They actually had to weight it in a way where, you're getting good gear off of certain monsters and stuff like that, rather than it just being completely random. And, Bungie had to learn that. Blizzard basically gave them that information. But I think it'll be really interesting, because with Activision only having Call of Duty, and of course Blizzard doing their own thing, whatever it is they do.
Overwatch, World of Warcraft.
Yeah. It'll be interesting to see if Activision finally decides to try to see if they can get a big name franchise, or create a big name franchise that, well, I guess number one, isn't a first person shooter, but also isn't as obscure as, because they made a partnership with what was it, From Software, the Dark Souls developer, because that game that the Dark Souls developer is doing, Activision actually kind of partnered with them.
Yeah, Sekiro. Shadows Die Twice.
Yeah. They kind of made a partnership with them just for that game, but it'll be interesting to see. I would imagine Activision is not the direction that they're looking to go, to make a whole bunch of little partnership, small games like that, in light of all the Call of Duty franchises that they have, the 3 different Call of Duty franchises that they have. It'll be really interesting to see what it is they throw their hat into the arena with, in terms of just their next big thing.
Just to kind of quickly say my thoughts on how Activision's going to go. I think it can only go up from here. I think Activision is going to want to make money, so they're going to see about getting another franchise in there. And if they can get another franchise, get it off the ground and get it rolling, and if Bungie can do its own thing with Destiny, then we have the possibility of having 2 great franchises there, and a way to branch out, and more games. More games are always good.
Yeah.
With
Activision, I feel like they're going to be just fine, because they have so many licenses that they can go to. Right?
Yeah, they have so many licenses they can go to. Yes, I agree.
They actually do, and they have a lot of money.
Yeah,
and quite frankly, they've been having other studios help Bungie, as well as the guys making Call of Duty, whichever one it is at that time. Infinity Ward, Treyarch,
whichever one's on that year.
Yeah, whichever one is up. Yeah. That they can just take one of those support studios and tell them, okay, you can actually make a game now. But the thing is, though, is that's going to take time. And right now, it's gonna get bad before it gets worse.
I think it'll be next gen. That's where we'll see whatever their next little thing is. I don't think we'll hear anything from them about what their new effort is until we hit next gen. That's what I think.
But hopefully, though, if Activision was smart, and I don't think they entirely are, because they were surviving on 3 games a year.
They could survive on one of those games a year.
Yeah, Call of Duty, but that's not smart, because if somebody important leaves from Call of Duty, they're just screwed. Just like now.
It's already happened. And they just got 2 other franchises to make more Call of Duty. 2 other publishers to make Call of Duty.
Yeah. Like what's going to be coming out in 2019 is going to be Call of Duty. There's going to be a Crash game that's a remake, which is going to be great, but that's a remake. And there's Sekiro.
Yeah. Secretion.
Mm-hmm. Secretion, sure.
Don't forget, Blizzard is also part of that, so they also have Diablo Immortal coming out.
Yes.
Yeah, that's true.
That's very true.
That's true. But in terms of Activision proper, you have to realize that they just lost a third of their portfolio. Even though it's a big game, it wouldn't have hit them that hard if they were making more games. But they have a lot that they can pull from, so I'm sure they're going to be just fine. But I think that they're going to have a year or two that's going to be kind of rough as a result, because they don't have now a Destiny anymore.
Oh, yeah.
So. Yeah. That's about it, though. They'll be fine. It's just, it'll be a little rough for a year or two.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, ladies and gentlemen, like I told you before, there's not a whole lot we can dig into when it gets into rubbing the crystal ball to see what direction it's going to go to. So with that in mind, we definitely want to know what you guys think, as well as what you guys would like to see from both Bungie, especially in the Destiny world, as well as what you guys think we'll see from Activision going forward, whether it's next gen or whether it's even before we hit next gen console. So, powers that be, head Esteban in charge, or even Shawn, since I don't remember all of this. Why don't we let the people know where they can find us and when they can find us in terms of where we'll be dropping audios, videos, and all of that good stuff for the people.
Do you want to do this, Shawn?
Yeah, I'm sorry. I don't think the people on their end can see it, but it looks like Esteban has a friend behind you. It was
Sonic?
the pet.
Oh, did she stand up right now?
She was, and then she left, and then I was like, oh.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
My dog. I have a bed in my office for her in case she wants to be in here, and she didn't want to leave, so I thought she was just going to be asleep, but I guess she stood up and changed her mind, because she's just laying there.
Sorry, I get distracted easily by cute dogs.
There we go. Clickbait dog. Do literally nothing. Just continue to lay there like a croissant. Okay.
But enough about our clickbait and my mind going off into random places.
No,
if you wanted to check us out, if you want to see more of our lovely faces, you can always check us out on Twitch. It's Tuesday nights, 7 p.m. Pacific, 10 p.m. Eastern, on twitch.tv/shadedpixels. Not Shaded Pixels Podcast. We've changed that. It's twitch.tv/shadedpixels.
Yeah. Ooh, 20 die.
For no reason other than I had it in my hand. I'm sorry. Go.
Yeah.
Very good. We're all tired tonight, ladies and gentlemen. So
I'm literally falling asleep. I'm sorry.
It's good comedy, though.
But
Shit, I heard what Shawn said about you. Goodness.
But if you wanted to catch us and hear us on an audio version, you can always find us on iTunes, Google Play, podcast.com, and Spotify. We upload it every Wednesday night around the same time, 10 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Pacific. And then if you want to see us with our faces but can't catch us live, we will be on YouTube at bit.ly/shadedpixels, and we will have that on 10 a.m. Eastern, 7 a.m. Pacific on Thursday mornings.
Yeah. I'm going to have to listen to that to hear what Shawn said about me while I was asleep.
You in trouble.
Don't worry. You'll be able to see it. Comments. I want him to actually watch it.
Yeah, it's great. It's great TV. It's great TV. Esteban, let the people know what you're getting into in the coming week.
Still more of my playthrough of Spyro and Bayonetta for replaythroughs and backlog purge. That's Mondays and Thursdays for Spyro, Tuesdays and Fridays for Bayonetta, always at 12 p.m. noon Pacific time. That's youtube.com/Colorwin. Let's see. Streams have been kind of getting in the back burner because just life has been happening. That's the one thing, unfortunately, I have not been keeping up with. But I am planning on streaming the next few days, actually consistently. I'm going to be playing Darksiders. I think I'm just going to focus on that since I'm having some trouble streaming. So just going to be just going to completely play Darksiders, get through that game. That'll be part of Backlog Purge Live. I got Resident Evil 2 coming in the mail, so I might play that, but I don't know.
Hell yeah, you will. Come on, man.
I mean, but do I stream it?
I'm going to play it. And you're getting it, you're going to stream it. You better stream it.
Right?
Come on, I gotta see what's going on
man, you better stream that.
I'm gonna be playing and go like, oh no, and then
exactly.
What's gonna happen?
That is the reason.
Did you see what happened on the freaking demo?
Oh hell no! I don't watch that stuff. You kidding me?
I got to the end. I still had like 5 minutes or something left, and I was like, I'm out of ammo. I don't know what to do. I lost my knife. Fuck it. I'm just gonna stay in the save room. I'm just going to stay in the same room. I got a time limit anyway. Fuck it. What else do I got to lose?
Awesome.
So,
yeah, you got to stream that, man. You got to.
Yeah. So maybe it comes in Friday. So maybe Friday night or Saturday, whatever.
Hell no, Friday night. Do it Friday.
Okay, apparently I'm doing a Resident Evil 2 stream on Friday night.
Talking about this, right?
Yeah,
I got peer pressured into it.
Cojones.
So that'll be at twitch.tv/HeyColorwin.
That's right.
And then as for my blog, just go to heycolorwin.wordpress.com. I got an article that I'm about to start. I don't know if it'll be done by the time of the next episode of this podcast though. But it will be coming. It's going to be about a topic that I've been wanting to write about for a while. I call it my Lion King theory, and it's about video game journalism.
Okay. Expound upon that too.
Just to give a little bit of a hint of what I'm talking about. I'm talking about specifically the scene in The Lion King where Mufasa dies.
Oh, sorry. I was thinking.
Okay. Not very uplifting, but go on.
Okay, but basically what I'm saying is that you can look at that scene and kind of like point to the different characters that's going on in that scene to different people and places within video game journalism, and you can see what the problem is.
Interesting.
Will make for a good read.
Yeah.
Indeed.
And that's me. Also all my social is HeyColorwin. Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, all the good stuff.
Yeah.
I think it's up there. Yeah.
Over there.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Okay.
What about you, Shawn? What you got going down, son?
All right. So a lot of my movie and TV stuff, just trying to find a good time to like record all that kind of stuff. So it's going to be a little bit later than I expected. So my gaming stuff's already up. I have a playthrough of the Resident Evil 2 one-shot demo. And
aside from like a whole bunch of mindless wander around the very beginning, Shawn actually did better than I did.
Mine was very much full of mindless wandering. I spent like half the demo just in the starting area because I didn't know where to go on from there.
Yeah. But then after that, then he did fine.
Yeah.
Awesome.
After that, I kind of went through there. Tomorrow will be another episode of Throwback Arcade. I'm really liking how that's starting to go, so I'm going to try to get some more stuff, kind of like tweak a few things. Of course, I do have some of my movie and TV show stuff going up. Just got to find the right time to record all of that. If you always want to know what's going on, it's youtube.com/Jonathan Studios. It is Twitter at Little Big Ham. Facebook is at facebook.com/Jonathan Studios. And you will not find me on Twitch because I cannot stream it.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, I'll keep this brief. I'll keep this simple. I've been on a bender, on a For Honor bender. I am learning how to use the DLC characters in Marching Fire. And I started with the Jiang Jun character, which is like one of the hardest ones to use, of course, because I'm a glutton for punishment, which is evidenced by my poor outing the first time I played. But I'm starting to get the hang of Oh Boy. It's quite powerful. I met a couple of people when I was streaming last night that might be able to help me out in the new breach mode that they have in For Honor. So keep your eyes out, follow, subscribe, do whatever it is you got to do. I'm going to be streaming that throughout the week, hopefully. dependent on what my wife allows me to do, but that's the plan. So definitely find me, Bunny3000. You see the way it's spelled on the thing. That's me on everything. Find me, follow me, play with me or against me. Doesn't matter. Just watch, like, subscribe, just like you're going to do right here on Shade the Pixels Podcast. Right. Find us, like us, subscribe us, love us. You know how it is. You know what it is. Ladies and gentlemen, we break it down for you guys, but we can only break it down if you guys listen and interact with us. So we love you guys. Thank you guys for watching, for listening, for responding, for interacting. We will see you guys next week when we talk about something else that is gaming related, as we always do. We love you guys. We're out.
I'll try to be more awake next time.